Hello everyone, this is Gökçen Ogrukmaz. I'm the course instructor and I'm going to give a brief review of chapter 1 of your textbook, The Economic Approach. So first we are going to learn what is economics about. And to answer this question we need to understand what we mean by scarcity and choice. Scarcity and choice are the two essential ingredients of an economic topic. Goods are scarce because desires for them far outstrips their availability from nature. Scarcity forces us to choose among available alternatives. So just think about that, what you have. You have time, sometimes you have money, or maybe you don't. But as you see, time is limited, right? You have 24 hours a day. So if you want to do something, you have to make decisions. Either choose one thing over another. So the time is scarce. Everything is actually scarce. What do we mean by scarcity? We mean sun energy. You might think it's actually unlimited. It's not true. It's limited as much as we have the sun. If there's no sun, if it's destroyed, then we don't have sun energy. So for that reason, economics is all about how to make decisions in a scarce environment. So scarce goods, food, clothing, household goods, education, national defense, leisure time, entertainment, clean air. You might think that air is actually unlimited. It's not true because clean air is scarce. We are polluting the air with production and sulfur dioxide and carbon monoxide. Therefore, clean air is scarce. Pleasant environment, pleasant working conditions, all these goods are scarce goods. Limited resources, what nature provides are limited. Land, natural resources, machines and other human-made physical resources, non-human animal resources, technology and human resources. So we can define actually resources in three categories. The first one is physical resources like machines and other human-made physical resources. Second one is human resources, which includes the knowledge, skill and talent of individuals. And the third one are the resources what nature provides us, rivers, trees, minerals and oceans. So scarcity and poverty are not the same thing. Why we say that? We say it because scarcity is a fact, but poverty is relative. For instance, in the United States, if a family earns less than 20,000, the family might be considered in the poverty limit. But actually, this family could be a wealthy family if we consider African countries. So as you see, poverty could be relative. So scarcity is actually a fact. Why? Because even if we eliminate the poverty on earth and make everybody rich, scarcity will always be with us. So the resources will be scarce. We will not have enough of every resources we have. For that reason, poverty is actually could be eliminated, but scarcity cannot. So because of scarcity, we have to ration. Every society must have a means to ration scarce resources among computing uses. How we can ration resources? Actually, we can ration based on first come, first serve. So what does that mean? Let's say you have a limited ticket for a game and you might say we are going to give the tickets first come, first served basis. And then what you'll see a huge long waiting lines to get the tickets. Okay, so this is one way of rationing the scarcity. But in a free market setting, price is used to ration goods and resources. So when price is used, the good or resource is allocated to those willing to give up other things in order to obtain ownership rights. So that means I have limited chocolate, I'm going to give chocolate who pays the highest price. So this is a price mechanism to ration the scarce resources. When price is used to ration goods, people have a strong incentive to earn income, so they will be able to pay the required price. So competition is a natural outgrowth of the need to ration scarce goods. Changing the rationing method used by society will change the form of competition, but it will not eliminate competitive tactics. So let's think about this question. How are grades rationed in your economics class? How does this rationing method influence student behavior? Suppose the highest grades were rationed to those who the teacher liked best. How would this method of rationing influence the student behavior? So if I give grades to the students that I like the most, then your sole aim in this class is to make sure that I like you, to get a good grade. But this doesn't mean that you learn the class. So as you see here, the rationing mechanism affects your behavior. If instead I give the highest grades to the students who worked really hard, study for this course, then your aim is going to change. Now you're going to focus on studying the material rather than making sure I like you. So the second part of this chapter is economic way of thinking, and now we are going to look at some principles that can guide you in economic thinking. The first one is the use of scarce resources to produce a good or service is always costly. So for instance, you want to get a good grade from this class, you need to work hard, you need to spend maybe 2-3 hours a day, but then what are you going to give up to study for economics is your opportunity cost, or the cost of making a decision. For example, instead of studying 2-3 hours a day for economics, you can meet with your friends, chat and have fun. So this actually, the value of the time you spend with your friends is called the opportunity cost of studying for economics. Okay, the reason we have opportunity cost is because of scarce resources. Time is limited, so your second best alternative, the value of the second best alternative is your opportunity cost of studying for economics. The second principle is individuals choose purposefully, therefore they will economize, or rational behavior, we can say that. Economizing, gaining a specific benefit at the least possible cost. So let's understand what we mean by that. Let's say you like pizza and steak, right? Let's say you like equally likely both of them. So you like pizza as much as steak. Which one are you going to choose? Probably you're going to choose the least costly one, which is pizza. So when you make a decision, you actually look at first the benefit or the utility of consuming or making the decision, and then next you check the price, the cost to you. Okay, so for instance, if you like chocolate more than vegetable, then probably you will choose chocolate. But also you need to consider the cost of the alternatives you have. So what we can say is that per dollar, how much benefit you get when you make a decision is the key when we say rational individuals. But this doesn't mean that the decision you make right. So rational decision doesn't mean that you make the right decision. So you might like $10 worth of chocolate more than $10 worth of vegetables, but someone outside might say, okay, this is not right, this is not the right decision. Why? Because eating vegetables is more healthy. So rational decision making doesn't mean that you make the right decision, but rational decision making makes sure that you actually evaluate the alternatives you have, you look at their benefit and how much cost to you, and then you choose a specific benefit at the least possible cost. And the third one is incentives. Incentives matter. As personal benefits from choosing an option increase, other things constant, a person will be more likely to choose that option. So what does that mean? Actually, let's say you have a punishment for driving fast. So you can get a ticket, right? Then you start changing your behavior and you drive slowly. So that's one way of understanding how incentives work. It might be in the form of a reward. If I say I'm going to give extra credit who buys me a rose, then it also affects your decision, right? So incentives matter for decision making. The fourth one is economic reasoning focuses on the impact of marginal changes. This is an important one. Decisions will be based on marginal cost and marginal benefit. So what is marginal cost or marginal benefit? These are the incremental changes in decision making. Let me give an example from your textbook. Let's say you go to a fast food restaurant and then you see that one cheeseburger is $1.5 and soda is $1, so total of $2.5. And then you see a menu item, it has the cheeseburger, soda, and the fries, and it costs you $3. So when you make a decision to buy menu, you are actually checking this additional 50 cents, right? You pay for the menu, and how much utility benefit that 50 cents bring it to you. That 50 cents bring fries, right? Because it's an additional menu item in it. So as you see, this type of decision making is called decisions based on marginal cost and marginal benefit. Okay, and this is actually used in economics a lot. When you make a decision, you always think about, okay, if I go from this decision to another, what is my marginal cost or marginal benefit, or what is additional benefit, or what is how much more I pay for changing my decision. Okay. Number 5, although information can help us make better choices, its acquisition is costly. So shopping to compare prices, quality, and other attributes of alternative goods is an example of an individual searching to improve their information. A good example from your textbook, for instance, if you want to buy a car, probably you read the reviews and everything and get as much as information you can. But if you want to buy a can opener, you're not going to do the same. So because why? Because gathering information is costly. Okay. 6.1. In addition to their initial impact, economic events often generate secondary effects that might be felt only with the passage of time. So secondary effects are important. Okay, let's give one example from your textbook. You get one aspirin. The direct effect is in your mouth, the taste of the aspirin. The secondary effect is the relief of the headache, right? But okay, this is maybe your intention, you want to relieve the headache, but sometimes secondary effects are not that much visible. Okay, failure to consider secondary effects is one of the most common economic errors. Because the long-term effects often differ from those of the short-term, failure to consider the secondary effects often leads to fallacious conclusions. Okay. Number 7, the value of a good is subjective and varies with individual preferences. So, for instance, a chocolate might be very valuable to you, but somebody doesn't like chocolate, doesn't want to pay for even a penny. Even if I give the chocolate free, doesn't want to eat the chocolate. Steak is the same. It might be very valuable to you, but vegetarian doesn't prefer to eat steak. So the value of a good is subjective and depends on the circumstances. For instance, if you have a ticket to a football game, you might maybe sell it $40, but then maybe you post that on eBay, you sell it $60. You see, the value of the ticket changes from one person to another. And if there are no tickets available, maybe you might sell it to $200. Depends on, again, circumstances, individuals and circumstances. Number 8, the test of an economic theory is its ability to predict and explain events in the real world. So we usually talk about economic theories, but actually the economic theories becomes valuable is if they can predict the future and explain events in the real world. So you can check these questions and try to answer on your own when you have time. And next topic we will talk about is the distinction between positive and normative economics. Positive economics is the scientific study of what is among economic relationship. Positive economic statements involve potentially verifiable statements. This is an important one. It's not subjective, it's objective. So usually they involve statements like that you can statistically verify. You can statistically say it's refutable or you can agree with the statement. So positive statements are not necessarily correct, okay, but you can test them statistically. For example, you might say an increase in gas prices decreases consumers' purchase of gas. So what I'm trying to say now here is that when the gas prices increase, you can see whether buyers buy more gas or less. So you can statistically test this statement. Another example, the inflation rate rises when the money supply is increased. The same idea. You can check the inflation rate, you can check the money supply and see if there's a relation between these two. And you can test statistically. Normative economics is all about judgments about what ought to be in economic matters. So this is subjective, and that means this statement might be true for one person, but for another person totally disagrees with that statement. Normative statements reflect subjective values and they cannot be proved true or false. For example, the inflation rate should be lower. One economist might say the inflation rate should be lower, another economist might say the inflation rate should be higher. I don't think any economist will do that, but anyway, so they are subjective, and this statement might be agreed by one person but may not be agreed by another. And the final part of this chapter is pitfalls to avoid in economic thinking. Let's start the first one, violation of the ceteris paribus condition. It's very important. Ceteris paribus means other things constant. It's a Latin term. When describing the effect of a change, a failure to hold other things constant might lead to erroneous conclusions. So this is very important. Let me explain that. So let's say when the prices of houses increase, the purchase of the houses decrease. Okay, this is a statement. But this statement might be true depending on under some circumstances, but may not be true under some other circumstances. So for instance, when the house prices increase, maybe the income of the households, people increase at the same time. So when the house prices increase, maybe purchases doesn't change because people are earning more. So in order to describe the effect of a change, we should say other things constant. That means other things affecting the house prices should stay constant, like income of the people should stay constant, so that we can see the relation between house prices and purchasing a house. Okay, if you don't do that, you might have wrong conclusions if you don't assume ceteris paribus. The second one is good intentions do not guarantee desirable outcomes. An unsound proposal will lead to undesirable outcomes even if it's supported by proponents with good intentions. Politicians may be able to gain by focusing attention on a problem even if their policy response is ineffective or even harmful. The third one is another important one. Association is not causation. So statistical association alone cannot explain causation. One example for this, let's say ice cream sales are increasing in the summer, and also the number of people drowned in the ocean increases in the summer too. But that doesn't mean that an increase in ice cream sales causes the number of deaths that we have during the summer in the ocean, right? Because they increase at the same time, because with summer, the heat is the problem here. When the weather gets hot, people buy ice cream, increases. Also, people swim in the ocean. That might result in more deaths in the ocean. You see, statistical association alone cannot explain the causation. The last fallacy is the fallacy of composition, the erroneous view that what is true for the individual is also true for the group. So a good example from your textbook, let's say you're in a game, in a stadium, and you want to see the game. So you stand up. When you stand up, you might think that it's good for you, right? But it's not good for the group. If everybody stands up all together, then maybe your view gets worse, right? So for that reason, we divided economics into two branches. Microeconomics, which focuses on narrowly defined units, like agents, like households, firms, government, and how they make decisions. And macroeconomics is the focus on highly aggregated units. So these are the variables that affect all agents in the economy, like income, GDP, inflation, unemployment. So one must be aware of the fallacy of composition when shifting from micro to macro units. So again, you have some questions for thought here. When you have time, you go over these questions. And that's it. This is the end of the chapter. Thank you.